Hi, I'm Tamara from mooglyblog.com, and in this video, I'm going to be demonstrating how to crochet the Ridgeline Stripes Crochet Cowl, which is a free pattern you'll find on mooglyblog.com. This pattern was made using a USG 4.5mm hook. This one is by Furls. For the yarn, I used Concept by Katia Merino Baby, which is a sport superwash merino wool yarn. Of course, you can use the sport weight yarn of your choice. There are a couple of different ways to finish this cowl in a standard circular fashion or in this bandana style shown here. Depending on which style you make, you'll need different amounts of yarn. One skein of each for the simple round circular standard style, if you will, and then you need a little bit extra of one of the colors if you want to make the bandana style shown here. In addition to the yarn and hook, you will absolutely need some stitch markers for this one. We're going to be working with lots of active loops at the same time, and you'll need stitch markers to hold your loops open. Let's take a closer look at the Ridgeline Stripes Crochet Cowl. So here we have the finished Ridgeline Stripes Crochet Cowl in one of the ways that you can finish it. You can see here, this is a bandana style. This point faces down, it opens up right here, and your head basically comes up here. Pretend this is my head. It comes up and pops up right here. This creates a really lovely point while you wear it. However, the bandana style, I know, isn't for everybody. And if you prefer sort of the more standard circle style, if you will, where it sort of looks like this and you just slip it right on over your head like a great big circle, you can absolutely do that too. In fact, if you prefer to make the circle style, then you will not need the extra skein of yarn that I needed to use to be able to finish out the bandana style. So that's why there's different yarn amounts listed for this pattern, because it depends on which style you'd like to make. I'm going to cover both of them today. Let's get started. So for row 1, we start with color A, whichever color you'd like your color A to be, and we make 53 foundation double crochets. If you'd prefer to avoid using the foundation double crochet, you can instead make a long chain and crochet back into the chain. The important thing is you end up with 53 double crochets at the end. Here's how I do it with foundation stitches. You can see I've already put a slip knot on my hook, and we're going to start by chaining 2. Then I'm going to yarn over and insert my hook back in that first chain that I made. I yarn over and pull up a loop. I want to make sure to take the time to pull that loop up to the same size as the other loops. Then I'm going to yarn over, pull through the first loop, then yarn over and pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2 again. That is our first foundation double crochet. And I always recommend using stitch markers. So I'm going to go ahead and put a stitch marker right in the top of that first stitch. That way I'll know where to end when I come back for the second row. After that, we make the rest of the row with foundation double crochets, and they're all made like this. We yarn over, and we find the 2 loops at the bottom of the stitch we just finished. We're only on our second stitch, so the previous stitch, our first stitch, is back here right next to the slip knot. That will help you find those 2 loops. Then we yarn over and pull up a loop again. That becomes the chain at the bottom of this stitch, so we yarn over and pull up 1, and then finish the double crochet. Yarn over and pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2. Let's do another one. Yarn over, go into the bottom of the previous stitch, the stitch we just finished, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through the first loop, yarn over and pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2. I do have a separate full-length tutorial for this stitch on my YouTube channel if you need it. Otherwise, just continue going until you have a total of 53 foundation double crochets or 53 double crochets, however you like to make them. So here you can see the small swatch that I'm going to be working on today, and basically this is what your row 1 should look like. Yours will just be a little bit longer. A nice solid row of double crochet. At the end of that row, after you turn, we're going to see the instructions to PULAD, P-U-L-D, pull up, loop, and drop. Now, practically, I actually do the PULAD part before I turn, but this is what it means. I pull up my loop, pull out my hook, put it somewhere where it won't roll away, grab a stitch marker, and I'm going to put it right through that loop. I also like to catch the working yarn. That's just a personal preference. But this is going to keep that loop from being able to pull out because we're going to introduce other yarns. We're not going to switch yarn colors the way we might normally do. I'm going to come back to this loop later. So we want a stitch marker in there because otherwise, as I keep working, it'd be very easy for me to accidentally pull on that yarn and for us to start losing those stitches. So once you've got that loop secured, go ahead and do the turn and we'll grab whatever we're going to use for color B. So now we're ready to join color B with a standing half double crochet to begin row 2. You can see I've already turned here at the end of row 1, so I've got that already laid out where it needs to be. For a standing half double crochet, you can start with a slip knot on your hook, or you can start with a simple little twisted loop, whichever you prefer. I think I'm going to go ahead and use a slip knot. Make that a little bigger. There we go. So to do the standing half double crochet, here's how I like to do it. I think it's really important to grab on to the tail end of the yarn here in your unused fingers of your hook hand, the ones that are free here. We really want to be able to stabilize the loop on our hook, on the hook itself. So once we've got that loop stabilized, we can yarn over, pick up our work. We're going to insert our hook right in that first stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. Then I like to take just a moment to get all my loops down close to each other so that they're not all leggy and, strung across my hook. And then I can yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops. And I've joined with a standing half double crochet. So at this point, I'm going to grab another stitch marker and I'm going to mark out the top of this stitch right here. There we go. And now we can continue with row 2. So looking back at our instructions for row 2, we skip the next stitch. So I'm going to mark the stitch after that with my thumb here. And in that stitch, we start our repeat, which is double crochet, front post double crochet, and double crochet in that stitch, and then skip the next 2 stitches. So let's do that together. We're going to double crochet, followed by a front post double crochet. So that means I yarn over, I go right around the post of the stitch itself, that same stitch we just worked into the top of. Yarn over and pull up a loop, pull it back to the front of the fabric. Yarn over and pull through 2. Yarn over and pull through 2. Then we double crochet again right in the top of that same stitch. So you can see I kind of had to push the other stitches out of the way a little bit to get back in there with my hook. That is fine. It's just yarn. It'll get out of the way. There we go. So after that, and pull up a little bit more yarn here. Got a little tangled. Now we're going to skip the next 2 stitches, 1, 2, and then we do that repeat again. So let's do that. Double crochet right in that next stitch, like so. Then front post double crochet around the same post. If you start to feel a little lost, pull your fabric. Let's get that out of the background. Pull your fabric apart, and that'll give you a little daylight. You can see that's the stitch I worked into. So I can see right to the side there where I can insert my hook. And on the other side, I can pop it back to the front of the work. Yarn over and pull my loop back to the front. Yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over and pull through 2. Then we double crochet right back in that same stitch. And finished our repeat by skipping the next 2 stitches. Let's do it one more time together. Double crochet in the next stitch. Front post double crochet around that same stitch. And then double crochet in the top of that same stitch again. There we go. Skip the next 2 stitches and keep doing that all the way until we get to the end, and I'll see you as we finish up row 2. So after you finish your last repeat in row 2, there should be 2 stitches left, and we're going to skip the next stitch and finish up with a half double crochet in the very last stitch. There we go. And at the end of row 2, we do the same thing. We're going to pull up, loop, and drop. So I'm going to secure that loop, and I will turn my work in preparation for color C. So now we're going to begin row 3 with color C, and we're going to do it the same way. This time I'll start by just dropping that little twisted loop on my hook, but we're going to do the same idea, a standing half double crochet. So I've got a loop on my hook, I've secured the tail end, I yarn over, I pick up my work, get all the little bits out of the way, there we go, and we put a half double crochet right in that first stitch. There we go. Once again, I want to mark that with a stitch marker. We're going to be using lots of stitch markers while we make this pattern. I think I counted you'll want to have at least 6 handy. There we go. And after that, we're just basically repeating row 2. Let's go ahead and do a couple of those stitches though together. We're going to skip the next one, and basically as we work our repeat, we're always going to be working into the center of those 3 stitches from each repeat before. So we go right for that center stitch, and we double crochet, front post double crochet, so go right around that center double crochet, and again you can pull your fabric apart if you need to. There we go. And then double crochet again, right back in that same stitch. Let's go ahead and do that one more time. We're going to skip the next 2 stitches. Now we always want to be working in that center of 3. Double crochet, front post double crochet. Let's go ahead and pull those stitches apart so you can see right where we're going to go. In on one side, pop our hook up right on the other, yarn over, pull our loop up, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and then double crochet right back in that same stitch. So basically, we're now doing the exact same thing we did in the previous row. We're just working into a row that's a little bit different. When we get to the end, we'll skip that last stitch from that last repeat and put a half double crochet in the top of the last stitch. Then we continue to add 2 more colors the same way. We pull up our loop and drop and turn and add the new color until we have all 5 of our colors added. So now you can see I've added all 5 of my colors. Every time when I finished it up, I added a stitch marker to hold the loop open, and I make sure to turn my work at the end of every row. Before we continue, I do want to take a moment to talk about yarn management. As you can see, this is a whole bunch of different colors all attached right now. And because we're going to be using the whole skein, I don't really find it worth it to make bobbins or anything like that, especially with fun little skeins like this. So what you want to do as you continue working the following rows, just take a moment at the end of every row and make sure that all your yarns aren't becoming too tangled. It might seem like a little bit of a pain to have to stop at the end of every row and switch them out, but believe me, it's much better than leaving it towards the end. So now, with that, we'll get back to the stitching. We're ready for row 6. Rows 6 through 10 are our repeat. So those 5 rows, just like these 5 colors, will repeat again and again until we have to make a decision. Which form of cowl are we making, the round one or the bandana style? So let's talk about how to make this repeat. Row 6, we're going back to color A. We're going to keep our yarn order. We worked A through E. We're going to continue working A through E. So we look for our color A loop right down here, right where we want it to be. We've got it secured with our stitch marker, so I'm going to go ahead and take the stitch marker out and put my hook right back in that loop. The stitch marker kept it nice and open, and I can go ahead and pull on our working yarn to make it to size. Now I'm going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to gently turn my work. And I can straighten out my yarn here at the end because we just put a twist in it. But what I want to do is I want to slip stitch in the top of the row 2 rows above. So the top of that first stitch of the row. So let's look at our work. I'm working with the dark purple here, color A. I'm going to go up 2 rows. So purple, green, or darker green. I'm going to look for the top of that row. It's right here. And you can see where one color goes into the other. That's the top of the stitch. So I'm going to put my hook right in there. Now you can see we've got these other loops happening back here. I just want to push them all sort of to the back. Any of these other yarns that are attached, we just push them out of the way. And we're going to put a slip stitch right in the top of that stitch, the one we just entered. There we go. So we chained 4 and slip stitch in the top of the row, 2 rows above. Then we're going to chain 4 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and slip stitch in the top of the last row made. So this one right up here. There we go. And you can tell we're going the right way because this active loop is right there. So it means we've turned, we're working with color A, we have to be going the right direction. So you can see those chain 4s create these loops along the side. This pattern is self-bordering. We don't have to go back and add a border to the end. We're going to carry all our yarns like this along the side. And as we do that, that will cause the different colors to overlap and create a really pretty pattern. And I'll show that to you here in just a little bit. But for now, let's continue with row 6. I've chained up the side. I've slip stitched in the first stitch of the previous row. So now I'm going to start with a chain 1. And the first stitch is a half double crochet. So I'm going to make that chain 1 just a little bit taller. And then half double crochet right in that first stitch. And after that, it's the exact same stitch pattern. We're going to keep the actual stitch pattern the same all throughout. It's just now that we're reusing our colors, we need to chain up along the sides. So just to refresh your memory, we go for that center stitch with a double crochet, front post double crochet, and double crochet again in the same stitch. So the exact same thing all the way across to the end where we finish with our half double crochet and pull up, loop, and drop. So I'm going to get there and I'll meet you there when it's time to chain up with color B. So here you can see I've worked across row 6, and once again I've secured that end with my stitch marker. So now we come right down here and look for the end from color B, and we can tell it's color B, it's the next one up. So of course we want to bring that over here so that we can crochet with it as well. So we're going to take that stitch marker out of there, put that loop right back on our hook. Oh, I put it on backwards. When you pull down on the working yarn, you always want the part of the loop that's moving down into the stitch to be in front of your hook. There we go. So now I'm going to do the exact same thing. We're going to keep doing the same thing. First we chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we look for the row 2 rows up. 1, 2. We push those other loops back and out of the way to the back of the fabric. We're going to go into the top of the stitch there, 2 rows up, and do a slip stitch right in there. You can see those other loops are just pushed right to the back. We chain 4 again. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that allows us to do a slip stitch in the side of the last row we just made. So rather in the top of that first stitch there, I should say. Get those loops out of the way again. It's a little fiddly at first, especially. Just take your time with it. There we go. And we can tell everything's good. All our other loops for other colors are in the back, out of the way. We're all set up to do the same thing again. Chain 1, half double crochet in the first stitch, and then we do the exact same stitch pattern all the way across. So you can see with our 5 colors, we're just going to keep working back and forth, carrying our loops along the side. So let me push these out of the way for just a moment here. Let's look at this fabric on the finished cowl so you can see exactly how these loops look along the side here. You can see as we keep going, when we bring up the next color in a slip stitch and then chain 4 again, every time we bring up the next color along those sides, it's just going to overlap a little bit. We just continue to push those other loops to the back, just meaning away from us. It's not a wrong side, right side issue. It's just push them away from you as you work your way up the sides. So we continue working in those rows until we've made a total of 85 rows, and that ends us on a row 10 repeat. At that point, if you want the standard round cowl, you can simply break your yarn. I would leave a long tail end for sewing, and then you'll simply sew the last row to the first row. So you can just sew those 2 rows together, and you'll have a beautiful round finished cowl. However, if you would prefer to keep going and create the bandana style cowl, then instead, after you have finished row 85, you're going to cut all your other yarn colors, except for color C here. We're going to do our chain 4 up the side, and then just crochet back and forth in simple rows of double crochet. This extends the length of our cowl for several more inches. You'll do a total of 109 rows, adding on the double crochet. So that's approximately, we'll say, it's rows 86 through 109, so whatever that is, probably 15, 25 rows, 24, 25 more rows of double crochet. This allows us to have the length to create the bandana overlap. Let me show you what that looks like. Now let's talk about assembly for the bandana style specifically. Here I've got a little piece of paper that I've cut out to sort of represent our long cowl here, but it fortunately fits on camera. So here you can see I've written main stitch pattern. The vast majority of it will be in sort of our ridgeline pattern, and then we've got those plain double crochet rows here at the end. The reason, by the way, I did that was to extend the length of our yarn, and because there's a matching hat, so we needed a little extra yarn for that as well. So how do we assemble it when we've got this long scarf? Well, put the plain double crochets to the right, have all the other stitches to the left. We're going to take the plain double crochet rows first and just bring it down kind of like this. You'll have to adjust this a little bit as you go, but that's okay. The sewing will take care of a lot of it. Just point it down to the right. Then we bring the other side down the same way. And it's a little easier to do in fabric, but we're able to bring these 2 points together. Let me show that again. Down and then down, so that these 2 points down here are going to meet right in the middle. And we join those 2 together, and then we seam all the way from right here along this edge down to the point, and then up along this edge as well. Let me show you on the finished cowl. So here's our finished cowl again. And if I open it up, you can see here are those plain double crochet rows. So I laid it out flat, folded in first this corner and then this corner, so that the 2 bottom corners met right down here at our point. Then I did some simple seaming. I just did the back stitch. You can use whichever stitch you prefer, and seamed from this edge all the way down to the point, and then all the way back up here until they were done overlapping. This was what creates that beautiful bandana style. And that's how to crochet the Ridgeline Stripes crochet cowl in 2 different looks. Be sure to keep an eye out for the matching Ridgeline Stripes crochet hat. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.